All right, howdy. Welcome back to WindleyMania, the greatest podcast you have never heard of, brought to you by possibly the greatest band you've never heard of. Although, I do want to touch on one of the greatest bands you may or may have not have heard of. But anyways, my name is the best in the world, Andrew Reidner. I'm alone in the storage unit. We haven't put out an episode. We didn't put out one last week. And we were going to put out this one this week, but Devin and I were recording, and we sounded very tired, and we just stopped during it. Like, what do we do? Like, we had spent basically a whole week driving a lot. Last week, so we played 2 weekender shows. One in Sumter. At Coverage, which was essentially like a house, but it was a house, but in the backyard there was a shed, and we played back there, and it was all fixed up to be a nice big stage. Everyone sounded really good in there, and it was just really hot, but I like it hot, some may say, and I say so myself. The next day we played at Tualingua in Charleston, and we with Fallscape and a Brevity, who are going to be here in Myrtle Beach, where of course we are located out of, at Fresh Brewed on May 12th. They both did great jobs, and they're going to do it again soon, but we'll get all that stuff later. Anyways, I was driving that weekend. I drove around the coach, the big boy, the big strong fella, and in my car, I don't have a lot of luck with cars. I don't know. It's sort of I feel like there's a trope where the guy has the goldfish, but they always die, or stuff like that. I'm sure in some sort of media there's something like that. I don't know. I've just always had it's usually with tires blow out. I don't know. I'm not a very mechanically savvy person when it comes to vehicles. And again, the car stopped when I put gas in it. It wouldn't work. So we were stuck at a gas station. I kind of was stressed out one night about this because there was a point where I still did not have my car. And I wrote on windleyhub.blogspot.com a little Weekender Fun Part 3 thing where it's basically, there's the 2 other parts include what I eat as well. It's just what I eat, essentially, and some of the other stuff that happens. And there's a little story about what happened when the car broke down. But the car is back in my possession. It is doing fine. I'm kind of scared to put more gas in it. I obviously will need to do that at some point because cars, right? So I guess we'll see how that goes when I do that. But it was essentially the purge valve. Yes, that thing. Never heard of it until last week. And yeah, but essentially we had to go to. Devin was very gracious to, we had to go to Charleston at one point to get our stuff back. And then we had to go again, because of some, mix up with not a mix up. It was just, there was a car accident and we couldn't get to the place in time and they wouldn't answer my phone calls. So we got the car. Devin was really cool about doing that for me. And then literally the next day I went to, Greenville, which of course listeners of the show will know. Greenville is the farthest place away from any civilization ever. No matter where you are, Greenville is so super far away. And it sucks because Greenville's pretty cool. They got a lot going on there. And we played a few shows there and it's always really fun. And I know they have this bubbling hardcore scene that seems really, really cool. And a lot of those bands, I believe, is Your Spirit Dies from Greenville? I don't know. I forget. I know where Violer was. They're really cool. But there's the big hardcore show that we're on. We're not really a hardcore band, but I guess there's like metal too. We'll talk about all that stuff later. The Myrtle Beach shows. Follow at Myrtle Beach shows on Instagram. But I was in Greenville. I went with my my lovely family, the three amigos. I don't know. My mother, my aunt, my cousin to the Peace Center to watch To Kill a Mockingbird, and I wouldn't really have any like interest in the play. I think the movie's fine. I think I had to read the book. I had to read the book in school at one point. But Aaron Sorkin of the he's a writer. He's done The West Wing. I love that show, and some other stuff. But he like rewrote like a new adaptation. Like, I don't think it's like changed completely. It's just a little more, I guess, Sorkin-y. And if you know what that is, then that's what it is. But Richard Thomas, famously of the Waltons, he played John Boy. I think he was the first Walton to go to college in the show. Richard Thomas, the actor, played the main character, Atticus Finch. So that was cool. He's also in my favorite rendition of All Quiet on the Western Front. It was like a 70s TV movie version. I think there's 5 of those like versions out there. I know Netflix put out one recently, but I have not watched it yet. But seek out the Richard Thomas All Quiet on the Western Front. Very haunting indeed. So it's been quite a week. We haven't really we haven't talked. We haven't at all. I felt inspired today. I don't know why. I just did. Next week we're going to be talking about a comic book related topic. So I was thinking about comic books, and I was thinking about how I was going to approach this, and I have no notes today either, so I know I'm a rambly man, and I ramble, much like the song Ramble On. That is who I am when I become a host on stuff. Anyways, we're doing a comic book related topic next week, and it had me thinking like about how I was going to tackle it in a sense. So like I was probably going to start off with the vague and broad. Hey, Devin, what's your relationship with comics? And then I was going to take a crack at it, and I was going to be there probably for several hours and just ramble, and it just seemed like a lot. So maybe we'll just bypass that. But I do want to talk about just some books I've been reading. I guess I'll just get to that later. I just grabbed some books from home that have come out this year, and they're all there's 3 different things about them. Well, yeah, pretty much stylistically, I guess. And then one of them has like a mesh of the 2 stylistic choices that can be found in comic books. So I just wanted to talk about that, but I'll get to that later. But first, this morning there was exciting news that I saw scrolling on the social media while on the toilet, as you do. Marvelous 3, one of mine and man's best friend favorite bands, is playing a reunion show in late October in Atlanta, where they're from. And it's very exciting. If you don't know who Marvelous 3 is, you should look them up. But I'll enlighten you a little bit. Around Devin and I were either in 8th or ninth grade. I can't remember exactly, but his uncle used to drive us around, and his uncle was basically like, with anyone with like older siblings, like you kind of get some of that like osmosis of like pop culture things from them in a certain way. Like, you know, when I was growing up, I had like my stepsister and my cousin, who they were a little older than me. So I was basically getting things from them because they kind of had more knowledge how to access these cool things. And so I would, you know, you get osmosis from it, and you know, you suck up all this knowledge and stuff like that. So Devin's uncle was definitely a guy for that when it came to music. I mean, he was pretty much our gateway into a lot of punk rock, like Descendants and Bad Religion and all that sort of stuff. And I remember when he would drive us around, basically like picking me up from school or whatever, and I usually go to Devin's house or go straight home. It's just, or going to shows. We would go to a lot of shows with Ryan too. But he would usually have just like one CD at a time in his car, and it would play for several months. It would be the same CD. And I mean, that's what I did too when I started driving. And I'm sure that's like, I don't know what people's CD habits look like, but that's how his uncle and my CD habits were. Just having the one CD and being like, yep, I'm going to listen to these 12 songs for the whole summer, or, you know, whatever. But he would like, so I remember like Unwritten Law. I think, what's the one album? Is it Elva Part 2? It's the one with like, you know, Celebration, and I always get the Unwritten Law albums mixed up. But Unwritten Law was one. I remember Cool to Be You was one. When True North came out, I remember that was one. I think Let the Dominoes Fall by Rancid was one that was in there a lot. But I remember one time he was going to change it up, and he was like, I don't know if you guys will like this band. They're not like punk rock, and they're not, you know, super aggressive in any way, but it was Marvelous 3, and it was I think it was the Hey album, which was their second album. They only put out 3 albums. And I know it was my first time hearing it, and I think it might have been Devin's first time hearing it too. It was very infectious, just power pop. And it really, really just like sunk in, like it was hypnotizing in a way. I don't know. It was just like, it didn't really matter that it wasn't like, oh, this isn't like super fast. It has like, you know, like kind of like aggressive vocals and just nothing but like rambunctious guitar parts. It's just these like super sugary and very snarky power pop. And I love that album. They have so the main guy in The Airhead, the Come On, isn't that great? The main guy is Butch Walker, who Butch Walker is he's done a lot of songwriting and producing for more, especially the past like 20 years, essentially, for like pop artists like Avril Lavigne and Pink. He's done stuff with Weezer. He's done a lot. His credits are pretty insane, and he's helped write like, or has just solely written like huge, ginormous pop songs. I think Taylor Swift was another one he worked with. He has a really great book called Drinking with Strangers that I highly, highly recommend. And it's just basically his career and then working and his thoughts on someone who is a producer and songwriter in like modern the modern music industry. But he was originally in a band. They were like a glam hair metal band called South Gang. And I think they were about to get signed to Metal Blades or something. I could be wrong. And then that fell apart, and it really just, it was him and Jace Fincher and Mitch McLean. I think it's the other two guys, okay? Sorry. They shifted and started this other band called The Floyds, and Butch Walker and one of the guys' wives was just his one wife. He wasn't doing like the Caleb or whatever the guy's name is, Cody Brown. He wasn't doing the Cody Brown gimmick, okay, which is his one wife who would also sing alongside Butch Walker and the Floyds. And that was when it was starting to be more power pop. It almost was like, I think that was 1996 that one album came out. And it has like a really like funky flair to it. I guess like the best comp I could make is maybe the Spin Doctors with the 1, 2, but it wasn't that poppy. Like it's poppy, but there is like definitely a like literally just like a sneering snark to it, just sort of like a self-awareness to a lot of Butch Walker's stuff. And then that trio, without the wife, they would start Marvelous 3, which was a little more straightforward rock and roll power pop. And they had Math and Other Problems, and then the Hey album, and Ready, Sex, Go. And those three albums are really, really great, and they're all different in a certain way. It sort of progresses into like, I feel like Math and Other Problems is a little more raw and stuff. And then by the time you get to Ready, Sex, Go, this is like huge arena type thing going on. Like, I think, there's literally a Cigarette Lighter love song. There you go. That's like a huge, big song. But the three of us, especially, I mean, Ryan's been following them, he saw them on their like original tours and stuff. They haven't played a show since I think the last show was 2001, and then they had like a little mini reunion at one of Butch Walker's show, I think. But we all really love that band, and I think the goal is to try to go see them. But really, I mean, it might not be for you, but I would really highly recommend just checking it out, like Marvelous 3, and then the other stuff too. I mean, the Floyds is really fun. I don't know if like the Floyds is on like any streaming services or anything. You can probably find some stuff on YouTube. All the Marvelous 3 stuff is on Spotify. It's only 3 albums, really. Check it out. And then Butch Walker's solo stuff is really, really fun and interesting too. His first solo album, Left of Self-Centered, is again sort of an extension of what Marvelous 3 was. So it's very much poppy, snarky, really loud too, and catchy as fuck. So, and then he sort of goes on more an alternative route. Like there's really, I like Sycamore Meadows a lot, and Letters. There's sort of what's the Rise and Fall of Butch Walker, and the Let's Go Out Tonight's. That's like a really fun like party sort of rock and roll, a little bluesy in a sense too. Hope I'm correct in saying that, but kind of it's sort of like a garagey sort of feel in that. We did go see Butch Walker. Oh man, I don't remember when. It was probably 5 years ago. It was around the same time as he has an album called Stay Gold that came out, and that Stay Gold album was very much it felt like a love letter sort of to Bruce Springsteen. But I kind of like some of the songs. I wasn't feeling it completely. But he was touring with that album and I guess that band who played on it. And that was a really, really fun show. I mean, even just him doing solo stuff is just super big and energetic. And I'm excited because this show for the Marvelous 3 is at the Tabernacle, and I absolutely love that venue. I've only been there once so far, and I'm going again in a few weeks. It's for the same band, Coheed and Cambria, and that's a really awesome looking venue. There's like, that's I guess maybe that first time sitting in the balcony kind of heightened the experience, because it was like you're sitting down, you got a clear, great sight line of everything, and just their stage looked really cool, and it sounded really great too. So really looking forward to that. Hopefully we can get some tickets to go to that. So, but check it out. Check out the Butch Walker. Check out the Marvelous 3. Really fun stuff. It might not be for you just because it's very, very, it could come across like super like saturated, like pop. I don't know what each of you guys is like palette is for music, really. I don't know, but it's really, really great stuff too. Even if you want to look at it at like maybe a production, if you like recording, I think Hey album is just absolutely perfectly executed as far as like what they were going for sonically. I think it all sounds really, really great. So yeah, Marvelous 3. I think I'll do shows at the end. I'm going to pivot, sort of awkwardly pivot into some of these comic books I've been reading. Again, next week, it is a comic book related topic. But I kind of wanted just to talk about 3 books that have come out this year that I've been reading and enjoying. But before that, I really, really need a swig of this Coke Zero. Everyone okay? Sorry, no notes either. No notes. Just fucking going. Just going because I felt like it. All right, so I'm reading 3 different books right now. I like comic books a lot. I think I was first sort of introduced to like the idea. I guess I would read the funnies in the paper, a lot of Garfield and Family Circus, and God, I'm blanking on a bunch of stuff right now. Great, isn't that awesome? But I was really obsessed with Batman when I was a kid, young small child. I think the oncoming Nolan movies really helped that, but I really liked the animated series, and I would the previous 4 movies that had come out. I loved those a lot. So and eventually I went to my local library and picked up Batman Hush, Jeff Loeb, and the returning Jim Lee, who had at that time wasn't drawing anything for like 3 years or something, but he returned with Batman Hush, and that was a little like I had a lot of solid knowledge about Batman, I guess, at that time, but this was, if you've read Batman Hush, it was a little not really what I was expecting. I still like that story a lot, and it was like the first Batman I read. And I think after that was Year One, so that was a little more of like, a little more grounded, I guess, in what I was kind of expecting to it, to this whole Batman thing. And I don't know, the comic book thing just sort of, I would just get trade paperbacks for like Christmas and birthdays, and then eventually I figured out, comic book stores. I can just go to comic book stores. Sometimes I would, maybe I skipped school once or twice to go pick up a comic book. And, I'll try to go on Wednesdays and stuff, pick up new books. And we got some right now. The first one I want to talk about is a book called No One, is put out by these 2 Image books and then 1 Marvel book that I wanted to talk about. So this is No One. It is being 2 writers. How do I pronounce that name? Brian Buccellato, I think is how you pronounce it. I've never watched an interview with him, but he's done a lot of like I only say never watched an interview with him because like I feel like that's where he would probably pronounce his name correctly. But he has done his big thing was when they launched the New 52 with he was on the Flash book with Francis Manapul, and I think Francis Manapul was also the artist on that book. And then they went to do that same team did Detective Comics. They had like this, the Icarus storyline. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but it was like, I see that cover all the time, the yellow cover of Detective Comics. That was them. The other writer on this book is Kyle Higgins, which I'll get to. But the artist in No One is Geraldo Dorges, who I am not super familiar with. I think he did some Nightwing last year. Again, not a lot of notes. I literally just have, I don't know if you can hear that. I have like the actual books with me. So not super familiar with him. However, Kyle Higgins, the other writer, I think his most like, before all the stuff that he's doing now, which is pun absolutely intended, massive. He did a 3 to 4 year run on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers when Boom Studios put that out. I have never read those books. Maybe at some point I will because I really like the Kyle Higgins. But Kyle Higgins also, he did this book. When did this come out? 2021? 2020? It was Radiant Black, which Radiant Black, and then it spun off, and now it's this thing called the Massive Verse. So you have like other spin-off books like Rogue Sun, Radiant Red, Radiant Pink. I think there's another book called Massive Verse. But Radiant Black, if you want to, like, I highly recommend just checking out Radiant Black. And if you feel comfortable getting into the whole mess of it's not a mess at all. It's actually, the ideas are very clear and easy to understand. So, but it's just, there's, it's a lot of books. So Radiant Black is really, really fun though. It's almost like, a lot of people call it like, if you're familiar with the book Invincible by Robert Kirkman, which now has the Amazon Prime animated show. A lot of people kind of are like, yeah, this is this decade's Invincible, just because it's sort of like with the relatable characters and sort of like these big twist in ideas as far as superpowers go. The main character, you kind of like, I find him very relatable. He's just a guy who is really down on his luck. I'm not down on my luck or anything, but I'm just saying, like, he wants to be a writer, but he doesn't realize that the only problem between him and his writing is himself. He doesn't apply himself that well. And I feel like a lot of people can probably relate to a situation like that. Like, well, I'm trying to like achieve this one thing, and I don't know what everyone's trying to they're being supportive, but it's just like, I find their support annoying in a way. Like his relationship with his dad, who his dad is like, you can stay here with us while you still figure things out, but you have to get a job. And he's just sort of like, yeah, of course, I know I have to get a job, duh. And it's sort of like that sort of tension with it in a way. Hopefully I'm kind of conveying that clearly. But yeah, it's I think a really, really fun book, and a really good take on superpowers and what to do with them, and conversations about sort of like generational tension and issues that has been a thing forever. I mean, like, don't trust anyone over 30 or 40 or whatever. So, but this book, No One, apparently takes place in the massive verse, which is, in line with Radiant Black and all these other stories. It is essentially it takes place in Pittsburgh, and there was a serial killer, sort of. He would go by Richard Rowe, and it was dubbed the accountability murders. So this guy was basically doxing people and then murdering them. And there was an attempt on a senator's life, and that failed. And then eventually they caught the guy, and that fella turned out to be the son of not the chief, but like what was his position again? The assistant chief of operations of the Pittsburgh police. So that's the guy who they think did all this bad stuff. And it's sort of like this very dense murder mystery. And now there is a fake or a copycat killer of the Richard Rowe thing who's doing the same thing, sort of doxing people and then hunting them down. And they're trying to figure out who it is. And it's very much the term, I guess, would be called talking heads. And by that, I mean, not a lot of action, but people kind of just talking. Like, I'm flipping through this book right now, and it is the character, Aaron, and, who was who they thought was Richard Rowe, or was basically confirmed as Richard Rowe, and his dad, Ben, who was the vice chief of operations for the Pittsburgh police. So it's a lot of talking, like back and forth. It almost kind of feels like could be a show in a sense, like on HBO or whatever. There is some like really cool action shots though, with you got this guy, he goes by No One, essentially, and he's like a vigilante. He's got like a silver mask with a blue orb. There's still a lot of mystery to be unraveled, but I would definitely recommend checking it out. It's pretty nifty if you are more comfortable with like sort of like the talking head sort of style, and it's also super, super dense. So I mean, I'm flipping through it. There is a podcast that goes along with this comic book. It's called Who Is No One, and it's an in-universe podcast where and these characters are in the comic book. You have Julia Page, who is like a reporter for what's that? The Drop. What's the name? Oh, Edge. What's the name of the newspaper? I always forget. I think the Drop is like part of the newspaper. I don't know why I just forgot the name of the newspaper. Oh well, but Julia's a reporter. She was like a sports reporter, but she like has done like sort of investigative reporting. So she hosts a podcast with her editor Teddy, who's voiced by Patton Oswalt on the podcast, and they sort of like really like break down everything that's going on, all the murders that happened, all the stuff that's going on, basically after the comic book, like kind of like collecting all the news stuff that happened. There's a bunch of Wikipedia articles, like in the back of issue 2, there's like a mock Wikipedia article for Ben Kern, Noahpedia. Interesting. And there's like fake websites or mock websites with like articles written by Julia and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's really cool, and it's like super dense. If you're into this sort of style, if you want a bunch of lore, I know like I know like true crime is like a super popular thing right now. So maybe even if you like true crime, you should get this comic book and then listen to the podcast, because it is produced basically like a true crime podcast, very somber, quiet piano playing. But this is sort of one version of like books I kind of enjoy. I the talking head thing, and it almost feels like a TV show. Sometimes I think it can come across a little boring, just because like, hey, if I just like, because comic books, you know, you can do whatever the fuck you want inside of them. Why would you just do like a regular TV show? But I think like Geraldo Borgs, or I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I do like the his style and his art. And then when there are really cool like little action sequences, there's one in issue 2 where I think it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, 4 pages of these like 3 panels of the cops chasing no one, and then it ends sort of like on this like splash page of them not knowing where he went. So, No One. Criminals, crime, vigilante, mystery. Check out that, but definitely check out Radiant Black. If Radiant Black #1 came out this year, I'd definitely be talking about that, but No One is connected to it somehow. I'm interested to see how. Okay, let me take a swig. Okay. The next book I've been reading that has come out this year, started in January, is Avengers. Jesus Christ. The Avengers War Across Time. And this is, as No One was more of a talking heads thing with like a little bit of action, but a lot of just like heavy dialogue. The Avengers War Across Time is straight up an action book. It is basically a Silver Age action book. And I like a lot of the stuff from the 70s, which would be more so the Bronze Age, which is a really good mix of like ridiculous action and sort of like soap opera tendencies with like relationships and whatnot. But this is Avengers War Across Time, and it is written by Paul Levitz. Now, the Avengers, of course, a Marvel property. Paul Levitz, for a long time, was a writer at DC and eventually was president and publisher at DC for, I think, like 8 years. And he had a really, really fantastic run on the Legion of Superheroes. And towards, I think, the end of his run, or towards the like the part where the time where Legion of Superheroes, excuse me, that Coke Z, man, it's really kicking my ass. The time where Legion of Superheroes changed tonally and became a little more darker. Right before that, there was this great Paul Levitz and Keith Giffen. They did the Great Darkness saga, which is like just shrouds the characters in darkness and in mystery, and then it's got this big twist ending at the end. It's really, really fun. I would suggest seeking that out. The Great Darkness saga. I think it's Legion of Superheroes 290 to 294. No notes. But Paul Levitz, I talked to him one time, kind of. When I was a kid, I wrote, I think I was 10 years old. I had to do something for school. And I wrote, I had to do like a business letter, and I wrote to Paul Levitz. I was 10 years old and I really liked Batman. Batman was at DC. I didn't know anything about like creators or whatever. The closest thing I knew was like Jim Lee. Like I was really like into Jim Lee and, Frank Miller, but I just wrote, I was like, all right, who's in charge? Basically, I was like, who the fuck's in charge of this thing? I was like, okay, Paul Levitz. So I wrote a letter to him when I was 10 years old, and he wrote back. I don't have that letter on me, but it was, if you know anything about Paul Levitz, like it was a little snarky, but it was still pretty cool that he wrote back. And then the art in this Avengers War Across Time is Alan Davis. And Alan Davis has been around since the 70s, much like Paul Levitz. He was brought on to do, for Marvel, they launched their Marvel UK, 1971, 1972, and then they had that line, Marvel Superheroes, and he was the one who basically revamped Captain Britain. And then eventually, when X-Men started spinning off, Chris Claremont had his Excalibur book, and that's Alan Davis did a really, I think about like 4 years of Excalibur with Chris Claremont, and that includes Captain Britain and his partner / lover, Megan, and Kitty Pryde, Nightcrawler. Who else was in it? I haven't read Excalibur in a minute. Rachel Summers, how could I forget Rachel Summers? An alternative timeline where Scott Summers and Jean Grey had a child, you see. And, but yeah, this Avengers War Across Time book is literally, I think it's really, really, really fun. It actually takes place, it takes place right after, if you go back to the 1960s, it takes place after Avengers number 11, written by Stan Lee and art by Don Heck. So, in Avengers 11 essentially was like Iron Man was missing, so the rest of the Avengers were like, oh, he's just on a leave of absence, whatever. And then in the 30th century, Kang the Conqueror was like, the Avengers already kind of like defeated him, but then he was like, all right, they are down a man. I think I will do something about that. So his plan was to make a robotic version of Spider-Man, who he saw and was like, hey, this Spider-Man guy kicks ass. And Spider-Man wasn't in the Avengers at the time. So he makes this robot Spider-Man, sends him back to the past, and that robot Spider-Man wants to join the Avengers, and he's like, hey, can I join your team? I'll help you find Iron Man. I know where he is. And they're like, all right, sure. So they go down to this temple in Mexico, and it turns out it's just like a booby trap. And then that's when the robot Spider-Man attacks the Avengers, and then the real Spider-Man comes in and saves them. So it picks up right after that, and they're flying back to Manhattan. Thor has basically, he's wounded up his hammer to make them fly or teleport all the way back to Manhattan. So it's Thor, where's the number one? Thor, Captain America, Giant Man, and the Wasp. And they're back in Manhattan. They're celebrating, and then Kang sends back another robot, this time in the form of the Hulk. And there's a great sequence of him just beating ass and tearing up the city. He where's that splash page? It's a really awesome splash page with I can't find it. But it's the Hulk walking out. He just took down Giant Man, and he's walking towards Captain America, being kind of cradled by Captain. There it is, by Rick Jones. Giant Man's down. He looks just absolutely terrifying, and he's about to fuck shit up. He's about to fuck up Rick Jones' day. And they eventually, take down the robot Hulk, and I think I dropped a book. They essentially are going to go forward in time and beat Kang's ass. And they attempt using this time machine at the Fantastic Four Tower. and Sindri, who is the king of the dwarves, who forged Thor's lovely hammer, and he gets control of the hammer, and then he basically commands a throwback to some old stuff, like since Avengers 5. That's right. It's the lava men, and underground. He controls them, and then they gotta like get the hammer back, and they fight them. And then issue 4 has a lot of cool stuff of Kang, just like he's about to fuck shit up. He's in the future, just kind of getting mad, searching for an artifact that will in fact destroy the Avengers. And really, if you like sort of more action-paced stuff, this is definitely a huge tribute to that. Even in the writing, the dialogue, it's very much a little bit of like cheesy, like joking back and forth, references to a lot of cool old stuff. But yeah, mainly the art. It's just Alan Davis really just going full bore Jack Kirby, Don Heck, and it just looks great. And there's also a little cute little thing where the comics code used to be on old books saying like the book was approved by the comics code. It's approved by the Time Variance Authority, which I knew what that was and stuff, but I actually recently watched Loki, and I kind of was like, and seeing how they did it, I'm like, I wonder if how they did it in Loki is going to affect this book, where this is all speculation. I don't know if I'm spoiling anything. If these Avengers are in fact just variants, like they weren't supposed to, do all this stuff, and the association with Kang and his association with the Time Variance Authority kind of seems like that's maybe where it's going. But I really, really, really dig this book, and I think I'm going to move on now. Again, Avengers War Across Time. Now, the last book I have sort of has... Let me get a swig of Coke-Z. Sorry. It's mid-sentence. The last book I have is also from Image. And this is very much a mashup of the two things. I was basically kind of like the two styles. So no one being this gritty TV show-esque talking heads sort of book, and then Avengers War Across Time being this action-packed, lots of fighting and quippy dialogue and whatnot. Ooh, hear that voice crack? This is Local Man, and it is co-written and I guess pencil inked. Who did the? You got a colorist on here, Philippe Subarero. So I guess I don't know who's doing pencils and who's doing inking, unless they respectively. Okay, I see. I didn't know if they were like collaborating more than that. But this is a Local Man, created and written by Tony Fleeks and Tim Seeley. And it's a very interesting book because it's essentially two different stories in one. It is about a guy named Jack Xavier, who was a former superhero named Crossjack, and he was part of a team called Third Gen. And so you have, I guess, sort of the main story, which is referred to as Farmington, which is a little more, it's a little, it's kind of got that TV pilot sort of feel to it, dark, or not super dark. It's a little lighthearted for what it is. Maybe not, actually, when I think about it. It's fun. It's really fun. But essentially, Jack was a former superhero, again, named Crossjack, and he is back in his hometown, and literally everyone hates him, and he has a lot of issues. He apparently did something super messed up while he was part of Gen 13, and that's what the Farmington book is. And now, one of his arch nemesis, his main, I guess, villain that he had to deal with when he was on the supervillain team, has been murdered, and he wants to solve it. However, his old team, Third Gen, has sued him, and now they own the copyright to Crossjack, and they own the copyright to Jack ever doing any superhero stuff again. So he cannot do anything heroic, solve problems, fight crime, or anything. So he's just sort of going rogue to figure out this who killed this guy. So that's one half of the comic book. The other half, if you turn it over, it's another cover, and it's the, I guess, referred to in the credits as the Gen 13 side of the issue. And it's basically Crossjack back when he was part of the team. Now, Gen 13 is essentially a tongue-in-cheek sort of homage, or resembling like a lot of 90s Image comics. So you had teams like Youngblood. Youngblood is like the main team that basically this reminds me of. Maybe Brigade. I mean, Shadowhawk is on the cover of Local Man 2, the Gen 13 side, which he was a part of Brigade. I think he was introduced in Youngblood. So Jim Valentino did a lot of Shadowhawk. I think he made him. I'm not sure. Anyways, so it's very bombastic and gaudy. If you ever look at like Rob Liefeld's Youngblood, it is super, not a lot of story, or some story, but not a lot of like focus on like writing, but it's just like really big, huge, crazy art, and kind of like just a lot of crazy colors and sort of like grotesque like features on people. And that's what this is. And they kind of have like a silly, like, they just like kind of like, especially in this first one, they just go and fucking murder this other team, essentially. Like, they absolutely just destroy the supervillain team. They're very like proud about it. But like this team, let's see, there's like Cutting Edge, one of the smartest guys to ever come out of Silicon Valley, but he turned down millions because being rich with vengeance is so much sweeter. Softcore, and she's like a lady who's made of marble or something. Softcore went from gyrating provocatively in music videos to heeding the call to action when an industrial accident coated her skin in impenetrable polymer. So, yeah. Air Raiders, Air Raiders, hilarious. Air Raider was an Air Force pilot shot down by Russian MiGs who survived by fusing himself with his plane. So he's like almost like Iron Man, and he's got little like plane tails on his feet. Big Island sacrificed himself to an angry volcano as a boy to save his village, and was rewarded with alien cybernetic technology that gave him the power of the Earth's core itself. And then it's him smashing the bad guys. Aloha, motherfuckers. It's very just super over the top. Yeah, so you get two sides. You get this talking head one, and then you get this really fun, silly tribute to a lot of those big Image team comics. So, and I again highly recommend this. I highly recommend each of those. Did I talk about the people who worked on it? I don't remember if I did. I guess I could. The guy who does the Farmington one, which is basically, if you were to look at it, is modern day, is Tony Fleeks, who had, I'm not super familiar with a lot of his stuff, but I really like his style in this. It's really like interesting page layout for what essentially it kind of feels a little talking head ish. And I hope I'm not being super like talking down on it, but I do like this art a lot. He worked on a book called Stray Dogs, which I'm not super familiar with. It came out last year. He's done a few other random things. There's nothing like, as far as I can tell, is like a super long run. Stray Dogs was described as Lady and the Tramp meets Silence of the Lambs, if I remember correctly. So I might check that out. And the guy who does the cross-gen side, the art, is Tim Seeley. And I recognize him mainly from G.I. Joe. He's done a lot of G.I. Joe stuff. I'm not like an avid G.I. Joe fan. However, I do live with one, a diehard G.I. Joe fan. Shout out Sean. So I've read a good bit of, just for fun, to get, just whatever, of his G.I. Joe stuff. He also had this one book called Hack Slash, I think is how you pronounce it. But that was essentially like this like monster hunter book. This lady who kills like these, like, they're called slashers, and they prey on vulnerable people and they go around killing them, and they take care of that. So those are just some random books. I'm going to put this out today, Tuesday. I'm recording it basically early afternoon. And tomorrow is Wednesday, so I'm going to go pick up some new comic books too. I think there's a new Local Man, actually. Again, those books, No One, Avengers War Across Time, which that trade I think is coming out. That the series itself I think is wrapping up in May, so that trade will be out by the end of the year. And then Local Man. So definitely, if hopefully that wasn't like super indulgent of me to go on this little tirade with comics, but I just felt like sharing some cool stuff and putting stuff out there and have fun. And next week it's going to be a little comic book related as well, with a character who I admire, a writer who I really, really admire, and we're going to have fun with that. But right now, I need a sip of the Coke Z because I want to tell you about some other stuff too. That is, I know we do this podcast, but we're a band. And we're called Windley. And there's a bunch of shows happening, and we're playing on two of them that I'm about to talk about. But Myrtle Beach Shows, if you follow at Myrtle Beach Shows on Instagram, or look them up on Facebook and Twitter, I wonder if he's ever going to do or if they are going to do an email list type thing. That'd be interesting. Or like a community thing, that thing where you text it and then you get text messages from whoever's trying to sell you crap. I think I'm on Tony Hawk's community list. So sometimes I'll get a text message from Tony Hawk. That's the only reason I got it, because I thought that's really cool. But at Myrtle Beach Shows, of course, a lot of fun stuff. There's a lot of fun work being put into this. Those guys are really, really doing a fantastic job. And if you're not in the Myrtle Beach area, maybe you're in North Carolina or Georgia or Florida. Really, I mean, if you want to just come and hang out in Myrtle Beach and come out to one of these shows, it's a lot of fun. Last week, there was a cover show, and I didn't really have any expectations for anything. I was just going to go have fun, listen to music, and that was really, really fun. There was about 180 people packed into that Fresh Brewed, which it was really great. Everything sounded really good too, because when the room's packed that tight, I think the sound's not bouncing off some of that concrete. So, sounds really good. So anyways, the next show I can think of at the top of my head, or at least that's next on this flyer, is also at Fresh Brewed, May 12th, which I think is a Friday. I hope it is. But anyways, Windley, that's us. Penalty Box, Fallscape, Brevity at Fresh Brewed Coffee House, $10, 8 p.m. Really looking forward to that. We're also doing a run. So the next day we'll be in, the 13th, we'll be in Raleigh at School Kids Records with Fallscape and Penalty Box and Contact Comfort at School Kids Records. And I really, really like Contact Comfort a lot. This is, that's going to be a lot of fun. And then the next day, the 14th in Virginia Beach at Scandals, which I've never been there. And I don't know the lineup on the top of my head. But if you're in Virginia Beach or Raleigh, May 13th, May 14th, come have some fun. May 20th at Fresh Brewed Coffee House. Clean Sweep is returning. They played a really, really great set back in January, I think, at the Brick House. Naom and Ocala played on that covers night. And now I've only seen them as a duo, but now they're a full band and they sound really, really good. So I'm excited to hear their songs in the context of like a full band live. And that's at Fresh Brewed, $10, 8 p.m. June 8th, Mall, Tombstoner, Visions of Brutality, Narcera, a lot of metal. Narcera, if you didn't catch them at the gym show, they were fantastic. And there's going to be at Arcadia Studios at 6:30 p.m., $10 as well, June 8th. June 16th, I'm really looking forward to this one as well. Bedlam Hour, Brandy and the Butcher, Heavy for the Vintage, and of course, Circuit at Fresh Brewed. It's $10 at 7 p.m. on June 16th. And then June 17th, I guess all I can say as of right now is, go where you need to go to look up information about the show. Keep yourself updated. You can get a ticket on Eventbrite. They're only $20 right now, and they are going to sell out. I'm mostly sure they're probably going to sell out. Maybe not though. Maybe something happens to where, okay, now we can allow more tickets to be sold. So Windley, Turnaforte, Hymns of Blasphemy, Graves of Valor, A Knife in the Dark, Your Spirit Dies, No Cure, Extortionist, My Children, My Bride. June 17th. It's going to be in Myrtle Beach. And it starts at 4 p.m. And again, do whatever you can. If you want to come to that show, it's not... what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that if you want to come to that show, I would recommend buying a ticket in advance. It makes things a lot easier, and it's it makes Myrtle Beach look good when we can do pre-sales really, really well, and that attracts some cool bands to maybe be attracted by that. I don't know. I don't remember the theory about it, but it's good. You should do it. And also follow at Myrtle Beach Shows to stay updated. If you want to go to that show, stay updated with it at Myrtle Beach Shows. And of course, all the bands. I'm sure we'll be doing a good job showing off what's going on. So that is WindleyMania. Hopefully it was okay. It was fun. I know I ramble a lot and I didn't have any notes or anything. I'm just sort of was wanting to talk because, I like to do that, I guess. I wouldn't do this if I preferred being silent all the time. But anyways, for more Windley crap, you got to follow at Windley_band because that way you know what the hell's going on. Also, if you would like to, it'd be really cool if you maybe checked out windley.bigcartel.com. There's a couple of our shirts on there and a pin. And I think Devin has a thing going on. If you put in Windley Maniac, it's free shipping or something. I'm not sure, but there's the Angelo did our robot shirts. There's a black one and there's a white one. I think it's a really, really awesome design. I commissioned it because I found Angelo through an artist website, and I really, really liked his crazy, havoc-inducing cartoon style. And I really, really like how this shirt came out. And then there's another shirt that was designed by a pal, Josh, our McDonald's shirt, but it's the M upside down. And people really, really like that shirt. I feel like that shirt, I see a lot of people wearing that shirt, and I think it's funny. But I like it too. So maybe if you don't have a shirt and you want one, I'm sure Devin will. Devin's the guy. He's the mastermind that takes care of that. So, Windley.bigcartel.com. What a sell. Did I sell it good? Did I sell it? Are you convinced to go buy one? And it would help us out. It would help us out because, we're a band and we like to put out music. And, sometimes you need a little bit of that scratch to kind of help move things along a little bit, unless you never want to hear us again, then do not buy the shirt. You're just like, don't. Wait, so you're telling me if I buy a shirt that helps you put out more music? Oh, fuck no. Oh, God, no. Jesus. Absolutely not. So that's understandable too. Whatever. But that is it. I swear to God, that is it. That is all. Follow at Windley_band. Follow at Myrtle Beach Shows. I'll see you next week. We're going to be doing some, how about this? A little bit of quack foo, huh? A little bit of quack foo. Yeah. You like that? All right. Goodbye.